Cheers. Good morning, everybody. Mike's MMA Picks here with your Fight Morning Quick Card Breakdown show for UFC Vegas 40. Aspen Ladd taking on Ladd-Dumont, where we have only 10 fights on this card. Let's get things kicked off. This show is being brought to you by MMA Oddsbreaker as well as BetDSI. First fight of the evening, we have Carnelossi taking on Nunes. Sometimes you want to say Arnie Carnelossi. You see those bulging biceps, spends time in the gym getting her curls in on the Instagram. Though this fighter is coming in with a 13-2 professional record, has hung in there with the likes of Angela Hill, taking on Nunes, who is a fighter who was popped by USADA, spent some time in one championship. Estella has the fluidity on the feet. Carnelossi fights like a service merchandise version of Jessica Andrade. A lot to be desired there, though. In this specific spot, you're looking at a minus 135 betting favorite and 8,500 price tag in DraftKings on the Carnelossi side. Still 28 years old. I'll be picking Carnelossi to beat Nunes. Nunes has been controlled throughout many of her fights, out-muscled, and I see that happening here. Be wary, though. Nunes has the potential to try to stay evasive on the feet. Carnelossi is more of a plotter than anything else. Next up, where we have the return of Brandon Davis, who is massive for the bantamweight division, taking on Dana Batgerel. Batgerel, we know, is the more crisp striker, the fighter who has more of a seasoned approach to them. In this fight, minus 155 for Batgerel, 8,600 in DraftKings. He's taking on a Brandon Davis who's coming in with a bit of a reach advantage, has fought the much stiffer competition, though he's been blown out of the water in past fights. Talking about Davis, plus 125 at the betting window, 7,600 in DraftKings. 14-8 record on Brandon Davis's side. You watch Davis fight, he does have the more well-rounded game, has some jiu-jitsu, has the volume advantage here. Batgerel is going to be a bit of a sniper out there, has the heavier strikes. Toss-up here. Toss-up. You watch the weigh-ins, and Brandon Davis looked completely sucked out in the weigh-ins. This fight, I think that Davis is the hungrier fighter here. Batgerel could potentially take him out of there. That is a real possibility. I'll be picking Davis, though. I think that if there are two fights on this card, the Felipe Arlovski fight and this fight, the Davis-Batgerel fight, where I feel like they're it's more of a toss-up. I'll be picking Davis. Batgerel does have the heavier striking and the more crisp striking, the dangerous striking. So Batgerel has to get that going. Davis could potentially be in trouble, especially with that big weight cut. The coffee is flowing this morning, my friends. So give me Brandon Davis in that spot. Next up, where we have Ludovic Klein, Sanford MMA's own, taking on Nate Landwehr. Nate Landwehr traveled over to MMA Masters to do this camp. Originally was supposed to fight Amir Makwan Amirkhani, one of our favorite fighters out there, who is actually, he has his hands full with Laron Murphy coming up. Ludwig Klein now coming in with an impressive 17-3 overall record, minus 390 at the betting window, 9,200 in DraftKings. We know he's got the heavy leg kick, head kick. He's got a sniper-esque approach to him, taking on Nate-Landwehr, who's more of a marauder, who comes in with his hands down, charging at opponents. Juicy J was able to take him out of there. Herbert Burns, of all people, was able to take him out of there with a knee. 14-4 record. Landwehr had some success at M1. In this spot, I think he may run into a bit of a buzzsaw here. It all is dependent upon, has he been able to shore up the defensive side of his striking, because that is a huge liability. Plus 290 at the betting window, $7,000 in DraftKings for Nate Landwehr. Nate Landwehr has been compared to Justin Gaethje light. I see some semblance of his game in there, but his body just hasn't been able to hold up. And Ludwig Klein, under Sanford MMA's tutelage, I believe, is going to come out here and send a real message to the rest of the division. I'll be picking Ludwig Klein to win. Next up, let's continue this journey where we have Lupita Godinez taking on Luana-Carolina. Luana-Carolina has a big-time size advantage here. You watch the lead up to this fight. 121 pounds at the scales for Lupita Godinez, who is coming off of that really quick turnaround where she looked phenomenal against Gomez Juarez. 28 years of age. Carolina, 7-2 overall record. Still coming into her own. Both of these fighters are 28 years of age. The raw ability. Carolina has the length. She has, in my opinion, a power advantage on the feet, though Godinez is a little power puncher herself. This is up at 125 pounds. This fight's expected to go to a decision at minus 185, but we've seen Carolina put in some pretty tough spots against Poliana Botelho, also Ariane Lipski, etc. She hasn't fought the best competition. Lupita Godinez is a warrior out there. Give her that. You know, she goes for it. The Jessica Penne fight, we saw what happened in that fight, but Carolina does not possess the level of grappling that Penne does. This fight, minus 220 at the betting window. I'll be picking Godinez, but this is a sketchy fight. You have a fighter here who is big time undersized here, and in women's MMA, it does not take much to make a difference and to be a difference maker out there. You talk about the Carnelossi fight. I mean, that young lady has testosterone coursing through her veins. Sometimes they can give fighters the extra push that they need. In this spot, I'll be picking Godinez to win. Next up, where we have Danny Roberts taking on Roberts-Emeev. Roberts-Emeev, the line has widened to minus 340, 9,100 in DraftKings. Danny Roberts coming in with a significant reach advantage, 17-5 overall record, plus 260, 7,100 in DraftKings for Roberts. Roberts looked great on the scales. Coming off of a win over Zalim Imadaev, but he also has spent some time away from the game, and I have concern about Roberts being out-grappled here. We've seen him against Claudio Silva get controlled on the mat. That's a real possibility in this spot. This fight takes place at 170 pounds. This fight is expected to go to a decision at minus 160. It would not surprise me to see Danny Roberts catch Roberts-Emeev in this spot. Roberts-Emeev has the much better grappling, fights to a safe game plan most times out. Goes in there, gets the win, has fought some soft competition. Surprisingly, he hasn't worked his way up the ranks despite possessing a 20-4 overall record. I'll be picking Roberts-Emeev here. And I think he gets this done by decision, though it would not surprise me to see Danny Roberts come out here and send a real message by throwing caution to the wind and catching Emeev. Emeev has been clipped a few times in his career, not necessarily put out though. So give me Ramazan Emeev, but I don't like this minus 340 line out there. Next up, where we have Andrew Sanchez taking on Bruno Silva. Andrew Sanchez coming in as a pretty significant dog. He has a, 12-6 overall record, been TKO'd a number of times, plus 130 at the betting window. This line has moved towards Andrew Sanchez. I believe that the value is on Andrew Sanchez here against Bruno Silva, who 20-6 overall record. We know he's got devastating power, minus 160 at the betting window, 8,300, 32 years of age for Bruno Silva. We saw against Wellington Turman, he was put on his back, and Andrew Sanchez has the wrestling to do that and rinse and repeat for a significant amount of time. If Bruno Silva is unable to land that knockout blow, then I believe this is Andrew Sanchez's fight to win. You look up and down that record, though, and Andrew Sanchez, he's coming off of the Mahmoud Muradov loss where he held his own in that fight. There have been many fights where he's actually come out and looked like a world beater, and then late in the fight, he runs out of gas. Now he's got to be able to mix in some striking with his wrestling, but we're gonna need Andrew Sanchez to come out and show his newly found AKA camp in his back pocket to, as he says, put on a surgical precision. So I'll be picking Andrew Sanchez. I think the wrestling is the X factor here. That is a clear path to victory for him, but there's always a chance Bruno Silva comes out here and clips him. So give me Andrew Sanchez for the win. Next up, where we have Manon Fiorot. Fiorot coming in as a significant favorite, taking on Mayra-Bueno Silva. Mayra-Bueno Silva, we know she's been in there against a number of UFC opponents in the past. Montana De La Rosa got to feel her power. She's going to take on a Manon Fiorot who is the more technical striker. She has the karate background and Muay Thai background. Manon Fiorot, 7-1 record, 31 years of age. Took Baby Shark out of there. Ricci made it look so easy. But this fight, I don't think it's going to come that easy for Manon Fiorot. 8,900 in DraftKings. This fight isn't expected to go to a decision at minus 115. The X factor in this fight is Silva's ground game. If she's able to somehow get top position here, now that might be a challenge closing the distance against Fiorot, but that is a possibility. Plus 200 at the betting window, which I think is a little wide here. I think there's some value on Silva. I'll be picking Fiorot, though. I think that the striking of Fiorot, the distance management, and also the defensive side of the striking. You look at what you would want other fighters to replicate. Watch Fiorot on the feet, the way she carries her hands and the way she maintains distance. She doesn't put herself in huge risky situations. She puts herself in an advantageous situation by getting in and getting out. And I think that's what she's going to do here, but it wouldn't surprise me to see Bueno Silva close distance and attempt at all costs to get this fight to the mat. So give me Fiorot in that matchup. Then we have Eric Gonzalez taking on Jim Miller, the grizzled veteran in his 49th professional mixed martial arts fight. 32-16 overall record for Jim Miller, taking on Eric Gonzalez, who comes in with a 14-5 record. You watch the tape, and man, Gonzalez does not look good on tape. He looks sloppy, makes huge mistakes against lower level competition. And these are fights that took place in 2019, so we're 2 years removed from these bonehead decisions, but he's got a puncher's chance here. He He's fighting somebody who has 16 professional losses. Granted, Jim Miller's been around the game forever. Minus 255 at the betting window, 8,700 for Jim Miller. I see Jim Miller coming out here and putting on a clinic as far as the grappling goes. Gonzalez can be controlled on the mat. Gonzalez coming in as a plus 205 underdog, 7,500. You got to worry about the gas tank of Jim Miller. He did have some success early against Joe Selecki. In this spot, I think he's going to come out, put Gonzalez on his back, and make a statement here. walk out of there with a win, with his 33rd win. So give me Jim Miller. Take a look at Jim Miller inside the distance. You could take a look at Jim Miller by sub, but if there isn't a big difference in the line, if we're just talking a few cents, then take that inside the distance line. You don't want to get stuck in a spot where somebody ends up getting a TKO rather than a submission, and you made that decision over 10 cents or so. So give me Jim Miller there. Next up, where we have the co-main event of the evening, we've got Andre Arlovski taking on Carlos-Felipe. Carlos-Felipe is the young buck here, taking on a Arlovski who, man, has been around the block as well. This is another seasoned veteran, 31-20 overall record, minus 125. This line has fluttered around 8,200 in DraftKings for Arlovski. Carlos-Felipe, minus 105 at the betting window, $8,000 at DraftKings. This fight is expected to go to a decision at minus 205. I think a lot of people got on that play early, the over 2.5 in this spot. And Carlos-Felipe, with his new brawler tattoo that he got right up here, is going to come in and look to mix things up, force the action. That's one way you have success against Andre Arlovski, is you push the pace. You do not get afraid to engage, and you don't let Andre Arlovski fight his fight. That's a big problem. Many opponents fall into traps where they get lulled into a situation where Arlovski works them and pushes them against the cage and does whatever he wants. Felipe, we know he's run into some issues with his back against the cage. And also, I thought he lost that fight against Jay Collier last time out. Arlovski, 42 years of age now. This is one of those fights that I think is a coin flip fight. And in past experiences, I probably would have taken Felipe in a spot like this. I will be picking him to win, but I think this is one of those fights where you want to stay away from the betting window. I think that Arlovski is going to keep this close. Felipe is going to have his moments, and it's going to be up to the judges to determine who is the winner. And we've seen Felipe come out, his body language during fights leads folks to believe that he's winning the fight. But I thought Collier won last time out. So give me Carlos-Felipe. I think he's just going to stay a little bit more active out there, and he's a mean fighter. Say what you want about his physique and the way he carries himself. I've heard him referred to as a giant chipmunk, I believe, through the years. But give me Carlos-Felipe to upset the apple cart here and get a victory. Main event of the evening, where we have Norma Dumont taking on Aspen Ladd. Norma Dumont coming in with only a 6-1 record. She has a Sanda background. She is the heavier striker in this spot, the more fluid on the feet. She has a strong base. If this fight does play out on the feet, I favor Norma Dumont. Norma Dumont coming in at 31 years of age, plus 105 underdog, 7,800 in DraftKings. Now, we know Aspen Ladd, her struggles on the scale. I don't think that's going to be an issue here. I think that she should be up at 155 fighting for PFL against Kayla Harrison. I think that is the weight class that she should be performing in. Minus 135 for Ladd, 8,400. I think Ladd's gas tank could become an issue. She has to get this fight to the mat to have success in my eyes. We've seen her against Yana Kunitskaya come out here and cause some problems late. She's got a great coaches in her ear. She does listen to them. She can get clipped, as we saw against Jermaine Durandamy. This fight's not expected to go to a decision at minus 140. Last week, Amanda Hebus against Mackenzie Dern, we saw how a fight can get dragged out, and before you know it, 5 rounds have elapsed. With women's MMA, I don't necessarily trust taking a fight doesn't go the distance. line in most cases. Last week, I thought we had it, but that wasn't the case. So we're staying away from that this week. You know, in this spot, I got to say, I'll be picking Norma Dumont, though it would not surprise me to see Aspen Ladd come out here and score a victory. Norma Dumont, though, I think she's naturally built for this division. Aspen Ladd is as well. I think that there's going to be a few situations here where it could get hairy. Norma Dumont, though, the crisper striker, the better footwork, I think that's going to be a difference maker in this spot. So give me Norma Dumont. I want to thank everybody for tuning in. Remember, go get what's yours. This is Fight Morning. Cheers to everybody. Got a number of plays that'll be going up that have already been up at a number of areas. So cheers. Wonderful day. Remember, third-party tracked, tail winners. Go get what's yours. Let's do this.